Coming up tonight on Business Live, we ask, are there implications for Ghana's economy following the International Monetary Fund's rescheduling of its board meeting on the second tranche of $600 million to January 11, 2024? We have some answers for you on that. Also in this bulletin, number of jobs advertised in selected print and online media shoots up by 116.6% in quarter 3 of 2023. Plus 20 Agritech startups to receive $2,000 each from Cosmos Innovation Center through its Agritech Challenge Classic.
Global economy or the global community is looking at Africa, and more looking at Africa in mainly two areas: the youth getting into agriculture and technology.
For details of these and many others lined up for you, please stay. Thanks so much for your company. I am Pius Kojobaka. Straight to our very first story. The International Monetary Fund has rescheduled the board meeting for the approval and disbursement of $600 million for Ghana to January 11, 2024. This is what Joy Business has picked up from some persons of the official creditor committee working on the country's external debt negotiations. My colleague George Yafe has the details.
This is the new date that the IMF has agreed to have a board meeting on Ghana. It is expected to consider the IMF report on the country's second program review and possible disbursement of some $600 million to the country. It is coming after the IMF was forced to reschedule this meeting on 3 occasions, that is from the middle of November this year to December 2023. The last date for this year was December 21, 2023. This was due to challenges in reaching a deal with China on the proposed restructuring of its debts. However, Joy Business understands that there has been some significant progress made just last week, indicating that this time round they could reach a deal before this board meeting date. Joy Business is learning that what the IMF is looking for is not a finalized agreement on restructuring of Ghana's debt, but what some may call a letter of comfort that they are okay with the terms proposed and they are now open to negotiating with Ghana. It was based on this firm assurance that the IMF secured from the official creditor committee that it went ahead to schedule this new date. Based on what we have picked up, it is clear that Ghana would not get the IMF cash disbursement before the end of this year, but rather in 2024.
All right, so before we bring in the perspective of economist Professor Lord Mea on the back of this, let's get more details on this board meeting. And of course, what are also we are picking up from government in terms of the next line of action from my colleague George Yafe, who has been monitoring and has been on that beat for us. George, so first off, what has government been saying about this extension?
Well, Pius, one critical thing that you want to answer is that what has kept this meeting being rescheduled over the period? It has to do with some concerns that China had with respect to how the debt should be restructured and even the basis for this debt restructuring. It appears that that issue or those issues have been addressed now. And that is the basis of government optimism that with respect to this new date that has been scheduled, that is January 11, 2024, they are optimistic that the board can meet and approve our second review and then disburse that $600 million to Ghana.
All right, talking about optimism, I know you've been engaging government officials who are very much deep necked into this whole deal. Now, do you get the sense that indeed by 11th January we will get something with the board?
Well, government, for instance, claimed that just last week there was a deal that was reached with this official creditor committee with respect to this whole debt restructuring deal. Respect to China as well, all the concerns that they had raised about the test dates, the restructuring of our debts, it appears those issues as well have been dealt with. So government believes that if these were some of the major things that was preventing the official creditor committee from issuing that much awaited MOU, then they do believe that all these concerns haven't been addressed, then they can go to the board for the board to meet. The government again even argues and claims that all these rescheduled dates that came up wasn't because they had not met the IMF conditions for the disbursement, but rather it has to do with the concerns that China has raised on how the debt should be restructured, basis of the restructuring and the impact of the debt restructuring on their loans that they've given to Ghana. So with respect to all these things that are transpired and they've cleared the hedges, if I can use that expression, they think that for this time round, they'll be able to meet all these conditions before the board meets on January 11, 2024.
Very well. So in all of these, ultimately, we are looking forward to seeing that it wouldn't have an impact on the economy. What have they been telling you about that?
Well, you want to look at the Bank of Ghana, and we posed this question to the governor of the Bank of Ghana about, because this $600 million coming in is supposed to provide some cover on terms of improve our reserves. So if it's delaying, then what is the Bank of Ghana going to do? The Bank of Ghana claims that they've been able to build enough reserves, both in dollar cash and gold reserves as well. So if it should delay even for a month or 2 months, they can fall on these reserves to support the local currency and meet our international obligations. So they believe that if this thing should drag, they've been able to build the required reserves when it comes to our dollar, then also our gold reserves as well to support the economy. So they believe that, and the Bank of Ghana governor believes that there is no cause for alarm with respect to building their reserves to make up for any delays in the inflows from the International Monetary Fund.
Again, do we know that all concerns raised by China have been addressed?
Well, at the official credit committee level, engaging some members on, it appears that all those concerns have been addressed. Now, what we again picking up from very reliable sources is that for the China rep on the official credit committee, it has to take some of these things that have been raised at the OCC level back to China for the assembly to approve. And so even though in principle there have been some preliminary agreement to these things, he now says that he has to take this thing back to his country, for their country, to approve some of these things before he can come back. Also, we also picked up is that while these negotiations were going on, the finance minister in China was asked to step aside. This is due to some other issues. So that also affected the movement or the fast tracking of the process. So here at the technical level or at the committee level has agreed to some of the deal that has been reached. What he needs now is that political blessing for these agreements. And therefore, based on some of these things that we picked up, it appears that China is now softening the stance. But, you know, it's a never say never. If they go to engage their political heads and there are still some concerns, well, we cannot say that for sure that this January 11 date will be met or can be finalized, or whether the fund will now go ahead to reach a deal with Ghana, moving China aside. We never know whether it will happen.
All right, George, thanks so much for joining me with the fine details of that. And of course, let's bring in the perspective of an economist, Professor Lord Mea. Thanks so much, sir, for joining me on Business Live. Now, despite the delay, do you think it is good news for Ghana, you would say?
Yeah, I would say it's not a good signal. And I know for political reasons, the managers of the economy will say there's no cause for alarm. I can tell you that you went into this program for a purpose. And we went into the program and we adapted it into our, plans, into our budgets. And so if we are not getting it, then we may have to, worry about it. And I can tell you straightforward that the delay is not a good signal at all. And it's not that I'm raising panic or a situation of putting some fire, in what is happening. But I can tell you for a fact that it's not a good signal because we all know, we went into the program for the purpose of, getting some inflows to, support our balance of payment. And so we have plans for the money that we're supposed to get from IMF. And then also we have plans as a result of we should get a relief as a result of, the debt restructuring. If we get a buy-in of external creditors, we're going to indirectly, more or less, save some interest payment and all those. So all those things are in plan, playing a role in our fiscal, space. And so we cannot say that if we do not get it, there's no cause for alarm. There is. A little delay can have impact on our fiscal, situation. And there's a tendency of possibility of having a shock in our, what do we call it, exchange rate, space. And we know Ghana is a country where everything is more or less, tied to the dollar. So if the dollar is going up, there's a tendency of getting that transmission effect into, prices and all those. Then looking at the inflation that we are recording, downward trend and all those may not be something that will continue to come down. So from where I sit, it is a cause to worry. We can't say it's a cause to worry. We had plans for the money. We had plans for all the, conditionalities that they give us, and they fed into our budget as well. So if we don't get it, there's a cause to worry. Let's look at, a space where you're going to negotiate. And I always say that we need that creditor coordination. And we are fortunate to have, this creditor committee being formed. And the diversity of our creditors, we shouldn't take them for granted, because no creditor may want himself to be put to a disadvantage if you're going into, debt restructuring. So the views are going to be different. And as a result of that, that delay should be expected.
Again, do you get the impression that the Chinese will now fully come on board and make new amendments or demands that may derail the progress we've made so far?
Yeah, so the Chinese, for all this while that they have been slowing down the agreement, we should appreciate that they also have to do their homework. It's a party it's a party discussion, and you cannot just get up and jump into a negotiation when you don't have much information. And I presume that Ghana, we did our part. We should also allow the creditors to also do their part. So I presume that for all this while that they were slowing down, it's a time to do their homework, especially when you have your negotiator put one leg forward, giving you the signal that if you don't take care, you will get a haircut of about 40%. Then obviously you have to sit back and do your homework before you come to the table. So I presume they've done enough, and possibly the next meeting, they should be able to come to the table with a good offer.
And Professor Mensah, there's been a lot of, concerns whether the rescheduling of dates may eventually affect the lifespan of the program in the long run. This is about the third time we are seeing the program, the meeting date with the board members rescheduled.
Of course, you have releases tied to certain indicators, and obviously, if the indicators are not being met, there will be a delay. You are entitled to 3 billion. But then at what point would the 3 billion be released? Depends on, how you meet certain indicators. So if those indicators are not being met, it will prolong the program. No doubt about that.
And can the economy withstand another rescheduling if the Chinese make new demands? And what will be the implication for the economy?
Oh, it's a serious one. You see, the further we get an assurance from management that there's no cause for alarm, because when it comes to, assurance of buffer to meet our, foreign exchange demand, I think is there. That does not mean that, we shouldn't look into the future. Anybody that is taking decision on this economy going into the future will look at how we get engagement with IMF. And you see, the engagement and the monies that are being released is not, the only thing that possibly investors may look out for. They may have to look out for the discipline the IMF instill in us. That is the soft aspect of the IMF engagement. That's the soft benefit of the IMF engagement. And that has a bigger value on our economy than the 3 billion that we're going to receive from the IMF. So if we're not getting, a true, kind of engagement as a result of this delay, it will prolong the uncertainty that the investor perceive on our economy. So it's something that we have to worry on.
Thanks so much, Professor Lord Mea, for your time here on Business Live with your perspectives on the subject matter. While longer on the economy, because the British High Commission in Ghana is hopeful government will conclude discussions with external creditors to enable Ghana access the $600 million second tranche of the International Monetary Fund program. The government is hoping to conclude discussions with external creditors particularly China, to help the country continue with the IMF program. Speaking to Joy Business at the Maiden Ghana Property and Lifestyle Expo, the Deputy British High Commissioner to Ghana, Keith McHaney, said Ghana's economy will show signs of recovery under the IMF program.
I think Ghana has successfully kind of turned its economy, done a deal with the IMF. The IMF have reported that it's doing well on the red lines that is set for Ghana to meet. So, and I think if Ghana continues along that path with its economic track record before COVID, etc., I can only see positives for Ghana. I was speaking to Ghana experts, and they were hoping that tourism would be the next big thing for Ghana. So if that is the thing, and the government starts to want to invest more money and spend more focus on attracting people to Ghana because of its climate, because of its people, then you can maybe see more hotels being built. But obviously with hotels comes infrastructure. So hopefully, you build the hotels, you build the infrastructure, people will come.
Now, Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, has signaled the regulator's commitment to implement policy measures that will help sustain the reduction in the rate of inflation. It follows the significant drop in inflation for November. The governor described the significant spike in inflation last year as unfortunate, but promised a downward trend going forward. The governor said this at the end of year cocktail for financial sector CEOs and board members. I'll bring you that instead subsequently. You're still watching Business Live. We are pausing for a breather. We'll be right back with more. Hello, welcome back to Business Live. Now, Mobile Money Limited, a subsidiary of MTN Ghana, has stated its resolve to dialogue with mobile money agents over what it describes as insufficient compensation for their services. Speaking at the 2023 National Momo Awards Night, Chief Executive of Mobile Money Limited, Shaibu Haruna, said, though a solution has not been found, negotiations are ongoing to ensure customers are not burdened with excessive costs. This, he believes, will be critical in deepening financial inclusion. More in this report.
A total of 44 awards were presented in 6 different categories. This year's awards recognize outstanding agents and merchants, both overall and at the regional level. The introduction of partner awards marked another highlight, honoring fintech collaborators for their contributions to the expansion of MTN Momo. Speaking to the media on the sidelines of the ceremony, Shaibu Haruna, Chief Executive of Mobile Money Limited, elaborated on the company's ongoing efforts to address concerns of insufficient compensation with agents and merchants while safeguarding the interest of all stakeholders.
We have to manage the relationship in terms of the customer taking the burden, and we have to also ensure that there's also a balance in terms of what the agent is also earning. So there are a number of things that we need to balance in order to make sure that the ecosystem is sustainable. We can't, at this point, be able to have a firm agreement, but we are working with them to work out modalities on how we resolve the issue. It's a concern that we appreciate, but we also have engaged them on the basis that we need to look at it in a much more broader sense in terms of its impact on customers and also the entire ecosystem. We don't want to take an action which would also discourage people from also participating and deepening financial inclusion in Ghana.
Regarding measures to combat Momo fraud, here is what Mr. Haruna had to say.
We've trained over 180 EOCO personnel in terms of understanding the fraud typologies and also helping them with a process around how to effectively prosecute perpetrators of fraud. So it's a journey we've begun, and we intend to deepen that collaboration into the new year.
My Kids Pride Links Enterprise was adjudged overall best agent.
I'm very, very grateful. I'm very grateful. Initially, I was thinking like it's a bribery thing. Until I encountered it myself, that's when I realized there's nothing like that, but rather hard work. It's all about hard work. As they always say, hard work pays. So it's hard work, determination, and perseverance that keeps me going.
J. Obeng Ventures took home the overall best merchant.
The number of jobs advertised in selected print and online media, which gauges labor demand in the economy, increased in the third quarter of 2023 relative to the same period in 2022. That's according to data from the Bank of Ghana. Here is more.
In total, 80,455 job adverts were recorded in the third quarter of 2023 as compared with 7,250 for quarter 3 2022. This is a 16.6% year-on-year growth. According to the Bank of Ghana's quarterly economic bulletin, the number of job vacancies advertised in the review period, however, declined by 3.3% from 8,740 recorded in quarter 2 2023. The services sector maintained its dominance as the leading job providing sector in the economy, accounting for 78.4% of total job adverts recorded in quarter 3 2023. Industry followed with a share of 15.9%, down from 17.1% in quarter 3 2022, while the agriculture sector accounted for 5.7% of the job adverts during the period. Further analysis revealed that the main requirements for skilled employees were tertiary education qualifications and a minimum of 3 years of working experience.
20 agri startups will receive $2,000 each from Cosmos Innovation Center through its Agritech Challenge Classic to address issues in the agricultural value chain with focus on the use of technology and innovation. Speaking to Joy Business, Executive Director of Cosmos Innovation Center, Benjamin Jankesi, says the program is to unearth the entrepreneurial potential of the young people. Here is more.
Cosmos Innovation Center started the Agritech Challenge Classic in 2016. This year, the challenge is in its second year when it comes to supporting students and young graduates to develop innovative agritech solutions for the sector. According to Executive Director of Cosmos Innovation Center, Benjamin Jankesi, his outfit is working assiduously to empower the winning startups to take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area, aside the $2,000 investment to be given.
The global economy or the global community is looking at Africa, and more looking at Africa in mainly two areas: the youth getting into agriculture and technology. And fortunately for Cosmos Innovation Center, we are putting all of these two together to really come up with creative, innovative solutions for the agricultural value chains. And therefore, we believe that with this, we're giving our youngsters the opportunity to really come up with product that can scale. Now, talking about markets, question is how do we leverage on the likes of AFTA? On the KIC side, we are being deliberate about the kind of engagement we are having with other partners, like the organization AFTA. We're also looking at other markets that we can actually have partners for market access, market accessibility for our businesses. Also helping to see how we can raise further income, further investment for our businesses.
Agritech Challenge Classic has over the years represented hope of the agricultural sector in Ghana and the power of technology and young people's participation in agriculture to address issues related to production, productivity, value chains, distribution, storage, agri-processing and value addition. KIC's board chair, Joe Mensah, disclosed that the challenge is part of the organization's way of reducing over-reliance on government to solve all problems.
Honestly speaking, if we have to wait for government to do everything, we were not going to get anywhere. And that's one of the reasons why we started this thing back in 2016. We said exactly what you said. It's an aging population in the space of agric. And back when we were in school, when you do something wrong, they tell you to bring a cutlass and go and cut grass or something. It's like a punishment. So people were disinterested or not interested at all. One of the reasons why we started Cosmos Innovation Center is I spent decades 3 decades in technology. I ran IBM, and I brought IBM into Ghana, 2009. And when I was leaving IBM, I was hired by Cosmos, and the whole mantra was that go and do something that will be outside of the oil industry, and yet it will be good for the country. And we felt that Agritech, as a mainstay of the country, we need to get back in there. It used to be like 70% of our GDP, and it dropped all the way down to 19, but now it's coming back up again. The exciting piece of what we did was that we said, how do we bring innovation into the space of agriculture? Innovation is the only thing that can be sexy enough for the youth to be excited about.
A total of 50 teams from 10 universities participated in this year's Agritech Challenge Classic.
And that's it for Business Life. I am Pius Kojobaka. See you same time tomorrow. Bye.